Shri Rama Rama Ramiti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tatulyam Rama Nama Varanane. I delight in the beautiful name of Shri Rama again and again. For even once remembered, the name of Shri Ram bestows the fruit equal to the recitation of 1,000 names of the Lord Vishnu. This prayer is significant inasmuch as during the story of Rama, we always have to bear in mind that Rama is what was called theologically incarnation. Now, according to some, the latest incarnation was in the 19th century, and that is Ramakrishna himself for some people. But he himself says that, well, it doesn't really matter if you believe in this theology or not, but it is a method. And so the method is to take the character and personality of Rama and to see how we can emulate such a person in our own life. We're not all military people, but all these stories, of course, are around the military. And we need to review what the events were that we find ourselves in now. And so just to remind ourselves that in Sri Lanka itself, there was wailing in every house. In Ravana's breast, grief, shame, anger seethed like a raging sea. And so far, he had sent all his commanders and men in detachments, and they were all very brave. We've seen that. Even if somebody is misled, still they can be courageous. So they had all been destroyed. And this has been the result of overwhelming confidence on their part, which was unwarranted. And it's good to be confident, to be strong, but it is not good to be conceited with it. To think that you are invincible is a big flaw in human personalities. And so this invincibility and contempt for the enemy was there, and most of these fought with no better weapons than sticks and stones. But repeated reverses had brought him, this is Ravana, no real wisdom. And power and strength without wisdom is disastrous. Not only then, but today. Both individually, if you have power individually, and you do, you have infinite possibilities. That's one thing. But if you have no wisdom with it, that's another. Even on the world political stage, where there are multiple disturbances, military coups everywhere, wars raging, I don't know if there's any wisdom in it. There are all the components that Ravana has. These components of self-conceitedness, a sense of lust, sense of greed, sense of territorial ownership. In short, we can say the prophet-actor complex. All of us have to overcome this. And so we see that he had not even disputed the passage of the sea, but he'd allowed the enemies to come to his island and to establish themselves on his island. And so he'd been negligent, he'd been reckless as a general, just as a military person. But he was brave, and finally he resolved to fight himself, and with his sole strength to destroy the enemy, he set out. And he had full confidence and faith in his own powers and in the efficacy of all the boons he had previously secured from all the deities, means all the forces of nature that emanate from the cosmic mind, what we call God. And so his divine chariot was drawn by 8 horses, we can imagine, and filled with all manner of weapons, accompanied by a division of Rakshasa chariot warriors all together, and they enter into the fray. And as Ravana issues out of Lanka, the very sun itself seemed to be obscured by an unprecedented eclipse. And the foul birds and beasts of the night roared at large with weird, ill-omened cries, because anything which is not in line with Dharma will be accompanied by omens, which would indicate to any acute observer, this is not a good action. And so all of these, in the night, large with weird ill-omened cries were occurring, and disregarding all of these portents, Ravana drives out to the battle, accompanied by Virupaksha, Mahodara, and Mahaparshva. Now, the mighty Rakshasa warriors who follow Ravana, they all get mowed down straight away by a deadly flight of arrows and chunks of rocks. And presently, Ravana himself is facing Lakshmana. And Lakshmana tries to oppose his further progress, forcing his way past Lakshmana, however. Ravana precipitates himself against Rama with all the pent-up fury of hatred and revenge, and strives to overwhelm him with a spate of arrows. Now, if you start off with my initial comments today, you're really fighting against truth, justice, you're fighting against God himself. We can imagine what is the outcome. But also in our personal life, we do that. And it is not popular today in this contemporary society to even mention the word of God or religion or the afterlife or any of these topics. But there is a breakthrough. We can talk about mindfulness, we can talk about meditation, we can even talk about yoga. And so there's a new understanding of this, but if we lead it properly, we'll come to the same conclusion. The problem is, the more we are attached to life and its entertainments that technology has to offer, the less inclined we are to have anything to do with the deeper things of life and the deeper inquiries, even though there's an urge and a push from inside inherently within us. But Rama easily baffled these arrows and manages to deal with them and neutralize them with his own arrows, and he strikes Ravana repeatedly without, however, being able to penetrate Ravana's considerable armor. And in this way they fought, these supreme bowmen, each bent on slaying the other and using increasingly powerful missiles of secret power. And while all the deities, that is all the divine powers and sources, let us say in heaven, look on with marvel and admiration at the scene, because they're seeing the talents and the skills and the powers that they themselves have provided. But neither hero had met such another opponent before, and on both sides admiration was also mingled with wrath. A severe opponent, you cannot help but admire them, regardless of their moral position. And Rama pierces with his darts every limb of Ravana, and yet he doesn't fail. And then Lakshmana and Vibhishana together, they attack Ravana, and furious with his brother and determined to kill him, Ravana flings at him a powerful weapon. But intercepted by a dart of Lakshmana, it broke into two and fell on the ground like a burning brand. And once again, Ravana aims another mighty Shakti, another powerful weapon against Vibhishana. But this too, Lakshmana intercepts. And then Ravana hurls a Shakti at Lakshmana, crying, "Now you are dead." And the description of these you can understand philosophically. Shakti, that is a powerful thing, something that has tremendous energy behind it. But under its impact, Lakshmana falls down unconscious on the ground. This is a setback. And not observing this and noticing this, Rama goes on keeping up his pressure against Ravana. And while the battle rages between the two, the Vana leaders take counsel and they send Hanuman once again to the Hill of Herbs in the Himalayas to save the life of Lakshmana. And for the very second time, Hanuman flies northwards, and not wasting time searching for the plants, again he returns with the whole mountain. And Lakshmana gets well again and resumes his part in the battle. We all have herbal remedies, so to speak, psychological remedies. There can always be, in the midst of being wounded psychologically, physically, in this world, there is always a counter remedy available for us. And sometimes we have to be bold enough to take the whole thing, the whole mountain with us. In other words, we have to take extreme measures. Psychologically, if you don't take extreme measures, you're likely to go down into a downward spiral. You have to have the capacity to catch it, but that's not enough. You have to push it up, and you have to push it up to its ultimate. In spiritual life, we have to increase the intensity of our efforts. So for the second time, this has happened. And in the meantime, Martali brings his master Indra's chariot to the battlefield for the use of Ram. And Indra, who as we know is the king of the deities, has sent this for your use, Martali tells him. And so please be pleased to ascend this chariot, and with this pleased to destroy Ravana, the enemy of the deities. Again, we have to interpret the deities as all the fundamental subtle forces, wave-like forces that combine and recombine and condense as this material world of the senses. And Rama bows to the deities and circumambulates the divine chariot, and then he gets into it. And after this, a wonderful battle follows. And sorely wounded, Ravana by now falls himself unconscious. And noticing this, his charioteer quietly takes him out of the battlefield. And when a little later Ravana recovers consciousness, instead of being thankful and being relieved, he was in a higher state of wrath and anger, and with his charioteer for taking him out of the battlefield in no less. Instead of saying thank you, he now turns his anger against the person who removed him from the battlefield. And he insists on being taken back into the battlefield to face Rama. And the grim battle begins again, and every astra or every missile is met by another missile. And in new and wonderful ways, the two chariots move and the two warriors fight for a long time, while both armies watch the spectacle with breathless admiration and also, of course, anxiety. We don't know who's going to win in this battle, just by observing the back and forth of the battle. Now Martali, the charioteer, whispers into Rama's ear, "You see, the Rakshasa's end is approaching, so don't delay any further. And can I remind you of your Brahmastra, that is your final absolute weapon that you have, a missile of all missiles." And Rama utters the spell, because that's the only way we can use the weapons, is through mantra, and sends the Brahmastra. And though the Rakshasa's 10 heads had often been cut off before, they had grown again and baffled Rama. What does it mean? We have these 10 senses as part of the mind. I'll just remind you of the Sankya's arrangement of what is the mind. The mind has a number of different parts. That's why we know it's not the ultimate. It's an aggregate of things. And we see at the very fundamental level are the indriyas. These are not the eyes literally or the ears. These are the inner senses. These are part of the mental makeup. And so 10 heads, that is 10 senses are available. And if all of this part of the mind deceives us, in other words, when we adjust our moral position, that is fine. We maintain our 10 heads. But if we now allow the senses to be polluted, if we're not careful, they will grow again. We often can resolve to do better, and yet the same pattern of behavior comes back again. And so, as I say, many heads are there, and the Brahmastra that is sent emits flames and drives itself towards Ravana and pierces his chest. And in his chest is enshrined the secret of his invincibility. But it gets shattered. And then now the bow slips from the Rakshasa's hand, and he falls down from the chariot and lays stretched out on the battlefield. And all the gods, the deities, they blow their trumpets, and Rama and his chariot were covered by a heap of flowers showered from the heavens. And Lakshmana, Vibhishana, Jambavan, and all the other warriors surround Rama, lost in joy and adoration. And when the first flush of triumph was over and Vibhishana looked at his brother's body, the natural call of blood and memories of boyhood days, when Ravana and he had loved and played, quite overwhelmed him naturally, and he bursts into lamentations over his lost brother. So, I don't know if you're aware of the dramatic events that have just been described. And you see any arrow like this, any powerful thought from the cosmic mind, if held truly in a sense of sacredness, accompanied by mantra, will hit at the heart of things. And the heart is really the intellect. But Vibhishana now is grieved at his brother's demise. "Oh, warrior," he cried. "Oh, brother of heroic deeds," he says. "Oh, scholar, learned in all Shastras, but learning doesn't do you any favors. In fact, cultivating the intellect, intellectually understanding the Shastras, really can be against you. You have to take the meaning, the understanding, and the meditation of it. Oh, valiant and famous King of Kings," he goes on, "your great arms are now sprawling helpless on the ground, self-willed and self-deceived, surrounded by bad advisors. You would not heed my warning, and the worst I feared has happened now, and you have reaped what you sowed, and you lie now on the bare ground. Oh, once you were a mighty ruler of all the Rakshasas, but now look at you, a heap, a mound of body." And to Vibhishana, thus lamenting, Rama, out of compassion, himself speaks. "Ravana fought like a true warrior. It's a mark of a great person to highlight all the positive attributes. You fought like a true warrior, and you fell fighting like a hero. Death has washed your sins, and it calls for no mourning. Ravana has entered heaven." What a peculiar turn of events. He says that Ravana had fought like a true warrior. He says that he has fallen fighting like a hero. And he says that his death has actually washed all his sins away. Why? Not because of his anger, clearly. Not because of his lust, clearly. But the fact that he was obsessed with Rama. Turning his anger toward Rama saves him. If you have to be angry with God. Please reveal me. Why haven't you revealed yourself? And so he says he's actually entered into heaven. And Rama sees things very differently. He's seeing that the drama began there. And really it's just a drama. Our evaluation has no meaning with this point of view. And Rama clears all confusion from Vibhishana's mind and bids him to do the funeral rites for his departed brother. And Sri Rama says, it's for you now, his brother, to do the rites, appropriate rites. Why we do the funeral rites is not only as an act of closure for our own grief, but also as a way of helping the soul on. Death ends all enmity, and I, his former enemy, even I can rightly perform his obsequies. So your brother is my brother too, isn't he? What a wonderful, compassionate thing. No sense of remorse or no sense of antagonism toward his former enemy. And basically, he's forgiving and forgetting, setting us all an example. The women of Ravana's palace, they now come to the field and they mourn Ravana, and they lead the queen Mandodari, who looked like the goddess of grief incarnate now, and the crowned queen and beloved wife of Ravana, and she was in utter desolation. And Indra, even the king of gods, dared not face your anger, she cried. The rishis and the Gandharvas, at the very sight of you, Ravana, have fled in fear in all directions in the past. And now a mere mortal, a mere man, a wanderer in the forest, has brought you down. I don't understand how this could have happened. And truly, fate is all-powerful, but Lord, my Lord, I warned you long ago. Didn't I tell you that this Rama is no mere human being, but someone greater than Indra or Agni or Yama, whom you could not vanquish? Now, people ask me if we had a one-line inspirational motto, if you like, for our society here. I would say infinite possibilities. We are as powerful as we make ourselves, provided we are able to tap into the infinite possibilities that we have. After all, our true nature is divine. And so, this Rama is no other than Vishnu himself, she declares. She recognizes it. In human form, God without beginning, middle, or end. Even when we heard that he stood on the around riding no car and slew your brother Kara in Janasthana, did I not say this? And when Hanuman penetrated Lanka, the impenetrable fortress, and laid waste, I knew the truth then. And I begged you not to incur their enmity, but you wouldn't listen. The first thing we have to do is listen to our conscience. Why did you cast lustful eyes on chaste Sita? This was the madness that drove you to your death. Wasn't it a heinous sin to carry her off when she was alone? Death in the form of Sita drew you to your end, and Sita and Rama are now reunited and happy after their brief separation now. But me and all of our race, you, Ravana, have thrust forever into the depths of sorrow, and alas, my husband, my lover, you lie here dead. And yet how beautiful you look with your body pierced by Rama's darts, covered with blood and dust of battle, never mind. What should I do now? I had the Lord, who was the Lord of Lanka. I had a son who had vanquished Indra, and they have both left me, and I am just a helpless widow without friends or home. And so in this way, lamenting like this, Ravana's queen, Mandodari, falls at Ravana's body, and she lies unconscious with grief. And Vibhishana now, he is crowned king of Lanka in a magnificent ceremony, and the new lord of Lanka comes out to the Vanara camp and bows low before Rama. And then Rama says to Hanuman, with the king's permission, enter Lanka and tell Sita what has happened. And Hanuman accordingly takes permission from Vibhishana because Vibhishana is the king. You have to take permission now. And goes to the Ashokavana to convey the news to Sita. And of course, when Sita heard of this victory, her joy was beyond words. Not because of Ravana's demise, but because her reuniting with Rama is about to happen. And her reaction is silence. Hanuman asks her, "Why, mother? Why don't you speak?" "What is there to say, my son?" she says. "How can I repay my debt to you? Your wisdom, your valor, your prowess, your patience, your humility are all your own, and none in the world can equal you." And as she said this, her eyes started filling with tears of gratitude and affection. And Hanuman looks at the Rakshasi women who had guarded Sita and turned to Sita, saying, "I wish to slay these cruel women who troubled you," Hanuman says. "So give me permission to do it." Now you see. What do you think Sita will say? "No, my son. Who in the world is blameless? It's a part of noble souls to be compassionate towards all sinners as well as good people." These words of Sita are treasured like nectar, and they're treasured by generations of pious people. See, the worst of sinners, clinging to the golden feet of the mother, can gain forgiveness. We remember Jesus' words. He was without sin, cast the first stone. They were going to stone an adulteress. This is the mark of spiritual greatness. These Rakshasis, she continued, but carried out their master's orders. How are they to blame? Their king is dead and has paid for his crime. It's unjust to punish these Rakshasas now. And all that Hanuman could find to say in reverent admiration was that what she said was only what was worthy of Rama's wife. Now we come back now to Ravana, victorious, as it were, in heaven, only because of Rama's grace, only because of Vishnu's grace. It is only because of divine grace that we are able to have any kind of spiritual revelation of our own. There's no such thing as revelation of your own. We make our small effort, and divine grace moves and floods us on the other side. Anyway, Hanuman asks her, "What message am I to carry to Rama?" Then she says, "I'm eager to be in his presence. That's all." And Hanuman returns to Rama and gives an account of his visit. And for some reason, Rama's face now darkens. And actually, with lackluster eyes, he falls into a brown study. A little later, he turns to Vibhishana and says, "Ask Sita, please, to bathe and bedeck herself, and then, when she's ready, bring her here." And when the message reaches Sita in the Ashokavana, she says, "I would rather go as I am, actually." "Not so, my lady," Vibhishana says. "The prince's orders should be obeyed." So, after a bath and bedecked with jewels and seated in a palanquin, Sita goes to the camp. And when he heard that Sita was coming, Rama wakes up from his meditation, his pondering over things. Events of the past rose like waves, and battering against his mind, throws it into a wild commotion of shame, grief, and joy. And at Sita's palanquin, as it was taken through the great concourse of Vanaras, they throng around the princess, and they cause confusion. And it was made even worse by the Vanara leaders trying to push them aside and make way for the palanquin. And Rama says, "Let no one be kept away. These dear Vanaras have stood and suffered for me. Sita will be pleased to see me surrounded by such friends. So let no one be pushed away. Let everybody join in. And Rama's face showed a strange transformation of mind. None of those around him, not even Lakshmana, could understand it. And alighting from the palanquin, Sita, with downcast eyes, proceeds towards the long-awaited union with Ram. Aryaputra, that is, son of a noble person, she says, and sobs, unable to speak anymore. A very emotional meeting. Aryaputra, the beloved and noble one, and it's an intimate form of address of a wife to a husband. Well, I have slain the enemy, says Rama. I have recovered you. I have done my duty as a kshatriya, and my vow is now fulfilled. And this is incomprehensible, wholly unexpected, these words that he was uttering. And his face was somehow darkened. We don't know for what reason yet. And then he speaks even harsher words. It was not for mere attachment to you, he says, that I waged the grim battle, but in the discharge of duty as a kshatriya. And it gives me no joy now to get you back, for doubt envelops you like a dark cloud of smoke. What do you wish to do now? He continues. You must live alone, for we cannot live together. You can stay under the protection of any of our kinsmen or friends, because how can a kshatriya take back a wife who has lived so long in a stranger's house? This is a great turn of events. We would expect such a sweet union between the two. But you see, Rama has a larger universal mission. Don't forget, when he returned to Lanka, to Ayodhya as king. He has now to act for the welfare of the whole of his responsibilities. And he has done his duty that was necessary as a Vishnu incarnation. He has destroyed the evil. But there's another dimension to this. And Sita looks at Rama, her eyes flash with fire. She says, your words that you have spoken are unworthy, and my ears have heard them, and my heart is broken. The uncultured way may speak such words, but not one nobly born and brought up like you. Your anger, it seems, has destroyed your understanding. My Lord doesn't remember the family from which I came, the family of Janaka, the great seer. He was my father, and he brought me up. Is it my fault that the wicked Rakshasa seizes me by force and imprisons me? But since this is how you look at it, there's but one course open to me. And then turning to Lakshmana, she says, fetch the faggots for a fire and kindle a fire. And Lakshmana, who had been watching Rama's behavior in dismay and indignation, turns to look at Rama's face, seeking his orders. But Rama doesn't say anything. He doesn't say no to Sita's request, nor does he show any sign of softening. And obeying Sita, Lakshmana kindles a big fire, and the princess, with eyes fixed on the ground, circumambulates her lord and exclaims, O ye gods, I bow before you. O Rishis, I bow before you. O Agni, you at least know my purity and will take me as your own. And with these words, she enters into the fire. She jumps into the flames. And of course, wonder of wonders, the flames were crowded with celestial figures. For all the deities came and assembled there, and Brahma himself speaks. Narayana, mighty God that took human form to slay Ravana, Is not this your own Lakshmi? What a remarkable way of looking at it. That you should look on your wife as Lakshmi, because, and the wife looks on the husband as Vishnu. Anyway, Agni, god of fire, rose in his own body out of the flames and lifts Sita in his arms with all her clothes and jewels untouched and intact, and presents her to Rama. And Rama says to Brahma, "Who am I? All that I know and can tell is that I am Rama, son of Dasaratha. You know who I am, and from whence I have come, and more. And it's you who must inform me." So saying this to Brahma, Rama accepts Sita, who is now fire-proven. And think you that I didn't know your irreproachable purity? He says. This ordeal was to satisfy the people, the greater good. And without it, they would say, wouldn't they? Rama, blinded by love, behaved with a strange weakness and broke the rule of well-brought-up people. And so saying, he drew her to his side now. And then Dasaratha descends from above and placing the prince on his lap, blesses him. My child, he says to Sita, forgive my son, forgive him for the wrong he did you to preserve the dharma of the world. God bless you. Sometimes we have some difficult decisions to make, and we have to view what is the action we should take for the benefit of all. A higher sentiment than personal sentiment and attachment. My child, he says to Sita, forgive my son, forgive him for the wrong he did you to preserve the dharma of the world. God bless you. And Indra gave his boon, and the Vanaras who died in battle for Rama regained their lives. And Rama and Sita, now reunited, ascend the Pushpaka, which carries them swiftly in the air with their friends, the Vanara warriors and Vibhishana to Ayodhya. And as they travel in the sky, look there, he says, that is the causeway built by Nala between the subcontinent of India, what is now, and Lanka. And again, look there, that is Kishkinda, he says, where I met and made friends with Hanuman and Sugriva. And Rama points out to Sita the spots where he and Lakshmana had wandered, disconsolate, and related to her all his unforgettable experiences. Such a sweet union, eventually now. In alighting at Bharadwaja's ashram, they send word in advance to Guha and Bharata. And the city of Ayodhya now, because it's 14 years gone, swims in a sea of joy. And Rama and Bharata met, and planning for Bharata's sake, ambitious Kaikeyi and her hunchback maid had contrived and concocted plots. But now as Bharata bows at the feet of Rama, a joy deeper than what they had planned for him was his. What kingly crown could equal the joy one found at Rama's feet? What sovereignty could bring one the glory that was now Bharata's forever? The Vaishnava hymns all exalt Bharata perhaps even above Rama, for a spotless mind and unblemished unselfishness. See, for 14 years to the return of Rama, Bharata, if you recall, has installed Rama's padukas, his slippers, his sandals, and administered the kingdom as a devotional exercise in the service of his brother. And now that Rama was crowned king as his father had wished, Bharata's penance was at an end and his heart was filled with joy. And why should we be stunned into admiration for Bharata? Imagine, he could have seized the kingdom himself. He could have had an element of pride and greed. But you see, he never did that. Now that Rama was crowned king as his father had wished, Bharata's penance was at an end and his heart was filled with joy. Would Hanuman need anything be said? And receiving from Rama a pearl necklace, Sita put it around Hanuman's neck. And he saw the smile of divine grace brightening her face as she did so. What more could Hanuman desire? We'll just leave it there until next week. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji.